I still recall the crisp morning air, the sun just beginning to peek over the tree-lined streets of my suburban neighborhood in Maple Grove. It was one of those idyllic communities often depicted on postcards: lush lawns, curved-winding sidewalks, meticulously trimmed shrubs, and a homeowners association ever eager to assert its authority over the tiniest details. My name is Samuel Carter, a middle-aged man in my 50s who has quietly cherished the serenity of this place for nearly a decade. Unbeknownst to the association, I also hold the position of the state's Chief Justice, a role I earned through years of navigating the legal system, prosecuting powerful corporations and resolving high-stakes governmental disputes. I never displayed my credentials or boasted about my career. I preferred to blend in as an ordinary neighbor seeking a peaceful existence. However, one individual was determined to disrupt that tranquility: Laura Mitchell. Laura, a woman in her late 40s, had recently crowned herself the unofficial ruler of the HOA. She exuded an air of self-righteous control, viewing herself as the flawless enforcer of community standards she deemed inviolable and worthy of upholding at any cost. To her, she was the quintessential HOA overseer, embodying the worst traits of petty bureaucracy: vindictiveness, personal grudges, and an insatiable need for dominance. When I first settled here, I purchased a charming home surrounded on three sides by a splendid row of shrubs. These weren't mere decorations. They were integral to the property's appeal, planted decades ago by a previous owner with a passion for landscaping. Over time, the shrubs grew tall, offering privacy from the bustling main road and providing a haven for songbirds. For me, it was a sanctuary, a retreat my late wife and I had hoped to enjoy together, though she passed before we could fully settle in. I kept a low profile after moving in, steering clear of neighborhood politics. Yes, I occasionally received notices from the HOA about approved exterior colors or grass length, to which I'd respond courteously, assuring compliance while maintaining my quiet life. My judicial role demanded I avoid personal entanglements, so I never contested the association's trivial rules. I assumed that staying unobtrusive would keep trouble at bay. Laura, however, had a knack for stirring unrest. She began sending me frequent letters, insisting I trim my shrubs to match the neighborhood's uniform aesthetic. While I had my gardener perform occasional light pruning, I refused to hack them into the rigid, boxy shapes Laura favored. Before buying, I'd confirmed that my property wasn't part of the original development bound by strict HOA regulations. The deed explicitly excluded my lot from their jurisdiction. To Laura, though, this legal nuance was irrelevant. She believed her authority extended over the entire community. Weeks turned into months, the letters accumulated, and our interactions grew strained. Laura would drive by in her silver SUV, lowering the window to deliver snide comments. "Samuel, it's time you can format those shrubs look like a jungle." I'd offer a polite wave, deflecting her jabs. This tactic worked until one fateful morning. I awoke at dawn, sipping coffee by the window, expecting a calm start to the day. But what I saw, or rather, didn't see, stole my breath. My shrubs, once vibrant and teeming with life, were gone. Not merely trimmed, but raised to stumps, their branches and leaves strewn across the lawn in lifeless piles. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. A profound sense of violation gripped me, as if my haven had been pillaged. Rushing outside, I tripped over severed branches, muttering, "What in the world?" Then I spotted it, a bright orange truck labeled Maple Grove HOA, parked nearby. In the driver's seat sat Laura Mitchell, arms crossed, radiating smug triumph. Two men in reflective vests, likely hired workers, stood wiping sweat from their brows, as if they'd just completed a grim task. My shrubs, the silent protectors of my home, lay scattered like battlefield casualties. I strode toward Laura, my voice trembling with restrained fury. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" She stepped out of the truck, a condescending smile curling her lips. "Good morning, Samuel," she said in a saccharine tone that grated on my nerves. "We noticed your shrubs exceeded the recommended height. The board took action." "Action," I repeated, my voice rising. "You demolished my private property without even a call." She arched an eyebrow. "Don't be dramatic. I sent multiple warnings. When you didn't comply, we exercised our authority. The HOA guidelines permit it. You know my lot isn't under your rules," I shot back. "The deed is clear." Her lips tightened, wavering between feigned sweetness and hostility. This neighborhood falls under Maple Grove's purview, she replied, flicking her manicured nails dismissively. If your lot borders ours, it affects our aesthetic. We have the right to ensure uniformity. Her audacity was staggering. My fists clenched. I'd spent years calmly resolving intricate legal disputes, yet here, facing the wreckage of my cherished shrubs, I felt a rare, molten anger. Still, I restrained myself. Losing composure would only weaken my position. Taking a steadying breath, I said quietly, Laura, you broke the law. You trespassed and destroyed what wasn't yours. This is a criminal matter. She laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. Do you really think you can intimidate me? I have city council connections. I've run this HOA for years. We handle these issues all the time. If you want to fight, you've chosen the wrong opponent. A calm resolve settled over me, my judicial instincts taking hold. I pulled out my phone, snapping photos of the devastation, noting the truck's license plate, the time, and Laura's presence. She watched, amused, as if she held the upper hand. If only she knew the strength of my position. I'd kept my career private for privacy and humility, but when justice was at stake, I wouldn't hold back. Laura was about to learn the difference between harassing an average homeowner and challenging the state's chief justice. After she and her crew departed, I surveyed my property, running my fingers over the jagged stumps. The scent of cut branches hung in the air, and birds circled overhead, confused by the loss of their nests. My heart sank at the destruction not just of greenery, but of habitats. Inside, I brewed a strong coffee and strategized. Legally, I had grounds for trespassing, property damage, and harassment claims. Laura's boast about council ties suggested deeper corruption, perhaps a network shielding the HOA. I'd seen similar schemes, inflated contracts awarded to cronies, fees funneled into private accounts. I couldn't rush into a lawsuit without evidence, so I began investigating. First, I confirmed my property's exemption from HOA rules with county records and the original deed. Then, I researched past complaints against the Maple Grove HOA disputes over fines and restrictions, none escalating far, likely due to residents' lack of resources. A year-old news article caught my eye. An environmental violation involved violating drained wetlands behind the community park, funded by the HOA and swiftly approved by a councilwoman with ties to its leadership. The story faded quickly, hinting at a cover-up. I suspected Laura was central to this web, her boldness suggesting allies in power. I noted my findings in a leather-bound journal, my judicial diary. 3 days later, I resumed my routine, appearing unfazed while quietly gathering evidence. I contacted an old law school friend, Daniel Hayes, now in the Attorney General's office. Over a call, I hinted at a potential corruption case involving the HOA and city officials. Something's off here, I told him. They're cutting corners, possibly laundering money. An environmental breach might be a start. Daniel replied, sounds like you're digging deep. If it's big, we can run checks on the board. I also spoke to neighbors, some hesitant, others furious, collecting tales of arbitrary fees and intimidation. A week later, Laura appeared at my door, feigning politeness. I heard you're asking about our finances, she said, stepping inside Ted. Let's talk. Information is free to gather, I replied coolly. She offered to replant my shrubs at a standard size, a transparent ploy. After the damage and violations, I said, that won't suffice. She leaned closer, her tone darkening. Stop digging, Samuel, or there'll be consequences. I held up a hand. Don't threaten me in my own home. Her mask slipped, revealing anger, before she stormed out. That night, I met Jordan Reed, a private investigator, at a diner. The HOA's crooked, I said, listing their offenses. Dig into their finances. Jordan nodded, taking my retainer. Over the next week, I pursued leads relentlessly: public records, bank statements, contracts uncovering payments to a shell company, and an account tied to Laura. Neighborhood tension rose. Rumors of an investigation spread. Laura held emergency meetings, decrying a disgruntled homeowner. I received anonymous calls, some supportive, others threatening, which I documented. 2 weeks later, Jordan delivered a dossier proving Laura's embezzlement. At a community meeting, I confronted her publicly, revealing my evidence and identity as Chief Justice. The crowd erupted. Laura faltered. Soon, the Attorney General's office launched an investigation, leading to her arrest and the HOA's overhaul. I replanted my shrubs, and Maple Grove healed, a testament to justice prevailing over tyranny. Laura never forgot who she'd underestimated, and I ensured the law stood above all.